Okay, we're live.
We're live at the Experiences panel. Do you want to say an introduction for anything, Neil, or anybody about what's
Yeah.
coming up?
Well, I'll just say, yeah, I'll do that, but I'll also say, what happened with the panels this year. The last three of these conferences we did, we're doing two Portal to Century conferences a year at this point. And so we had one in spring. This is the fall one. Next year, we'll have an online one in spring. So there'll always be a free online Portal to Ascension conference in spring. And then there's always going to be a live in-person one in California. Maybe we'll go on tour sometime in the future, but Southern California for now. So October, exactly a year from today, we're going to be live in Desert Hot Springs with our live Portal Ascension conference. Yep. And the reason why, so we did three panels at all the other events. And three panels is a lot to kind of like, put together, especially when you work with so many people on a panel. But then this time I really wanted to give energy to really like the major components of what we're really discussing here. So this came out to be like 4 days, 4 panels, ancient history. Then we have the Ascension one is what we started out with. Now we're in the experiencers / interdimensional one. And then tomorrow, it used to be called UFO disclosure panel, but now I've changed it to like extraterrestrial interdimensional awareness panel because it's really beyond the UFO subject, right? As we all know. And even when we get in, have these conversations about UFOs, even like us here and Grant, who's been in this for so long, it almost immediately goes to consciousness, So I want to just really rephrase everything in order to really focus on that element of it all so we can explore what this means for who we are as souls, where we've been in the past, have we had extraterrestrial lives, and what this means for our future once we have open contact and we do have the interaction with these beings, not just through the astral realm meditation, but actually from interaction and communication. Like we can have that world. So that's kind of the intention for what we're discussing today.
Great. Yes, this is experiencers, experts in experience and experiencers. And we want to welcome Kathleen Martin here. Everyone else, I think, has been introduced today or yesterday. But Kathleen, for people who don't know Kathleen, she has a unique lineage in the history of this subject because her aunt was Betty Hill, and she happened, you have to know who Betty and Barney Hill is. If you haven't, do your homework, okay, before. But Betty and Barney Hill was the foundational case within the beginnings of what was called alien abduction, UFO abductions. And Kathleen, I think you were 14, you said. You were there when your mother, Betty's sister, received a call talking about what had happened to her on, I think it's Route 4 in New Hampshire, on the way back to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where they were missing 4 hours of time. And that case is foundational. That is like the beginning of a whole new phase of UFO history, the experiencer phase, really. I mean, there was people in the 50s, but Betty and Barney Hill started, or maybe started before them, but they're coming forward, began this next level of understanding what the phenomenon was all about. Would you say that's true, Kathleen, as far as experiencers?
I believe so. I have to say that they had never intended to come forward, but in their effort to seek understanding, people that they talked to repeated what they said to others. And finally, there was the violation of confidentiality that carried their story to the public. But I think that we learned a great deal about the Greys from Betty and Barney Hill.
And the phenomena. Before we go further, I just want to introduce Kamara Jones, especially to some of the new old timers here. And some people know her, Grant and Kathleen and Mary. Kamara is probably the best illustrator of the ET interface, and she'll hopefully show some things later just to show you where the experiencer awareness is going. So thanks for being here, Kamara. And everybody else. But getting back to what Kathleen just said about the beginning of the experiencers experience, Grant, I know you're only here for a short time. When do you have to leave, Grant?
About an hour.
Okay, great. So do you have any comments about where, if that really is 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, is where we can say the experiencers' influence in the phenomena began? Do you have any comment about that?
Yeah, I always point this out. I used to ask researchers back, I said, you know, what happened before Betty and Barney, that it was a completely different world. And that's what my long experience in the UFO field seems to show to me, that it's not a consistent story that goes the same way all the way back through history. If you look, you see these periods where you have pre-47, where there are really no encounters with beings. Even actually until 52, there's no encounter with beings. And then we detonate the hydrogen bomb. And about a couple of days later, suddenly Adamski comes forward. And then you have the period of the 50s where you have the sort of the White Brotherhood, you know, these type of aliens, they're the good guys. And then suddenly the Betty and Bart start a new thing. And it's like we're going through these cycles, almost like we're being moved from step to step, almost like from grade to grade. So the way I look at it is that Betty and Barney and all the experiencers are, as I pointed out in my lecture yesterday, we've chosen perhaps to come into a big field where a bunch of us get together. We've made agreements with the intelligence behind the phenomena, and we say, this is going to be a critical time in history, and we all choose to come in at this time and this place and whatever mess we find ourselves in, because we're here for a particular reason. So I always look at the experiencers as the messengers, and I always say, as I said yesterday, the days of UFO sightings has passed us, and we are gone from grade one looking at UFO sightings, from this constant thing of, you know, disclosure and let's look for UFO sightings and are UFOs real. It's almost like Jacques Vallée said, you know, it's a UFO sighting, it's time to get over it. Let's move to stage two, and that is listening to the experiencers. I believe that the experiencers are the messengers. They're here for a particular reason, and they will never understand the phenomena unless we listen to them. And then, as Mary pointed out in her lecture, you get these surveys of 4,200 experiencers, and you start to see these very direct patterns. And Kathleen Martin did the surveys as well. You see very clear patterns of what these people are saying, and we can learn from these.
And Barbara Lamb, who's worked with thousands of experiencers. Welcome, Barbara. Thank you for being here. You can unmute yourself, because there was a sort of pattern, you're right, Grant, that was set with Betty and Barney Hill. And it wasn't until I think Bud Hopkins came along and said, you know, this looks like there's patterns of what happens when you're contacted. So Barbara, do you notice a pattern among experiences when you work with people?
Well, there are many different patterns, actually, because there are so many different kinds of extraterrestrial beings who come and interact with humans. So, I mean, there are some basic things, such as the visitor will come and the person might or might not be aware of those visitors. And usually they're consciously aware of being visited just for a few moments, maybe as much as a minute or 2 minutes or so. And then, and usually during that time, they realize that they can't move and they can't call out. They can't wake up anybody who might be even right next to them in the room. And then they go out of consciousness, usually, or once in a while, somebody will be conscious enough to be aware of being taken through the wall or the ceiling, the roof, and then through the air and into usually the bottom of a craft. That's all very, very typical, with each person remembering only a certain amount of that segment. But then once they get on the ship, all kinds of different things can happen because there are so many different beings, each with their own agenda. So Betty and Barney had some of the classic things happen to them. in that encounter that some of my experiencers have had. It does seem to be pretty typical, no matter what, that there is some kind of physical examination that goes on, no matter who the beings are. And that examination seems to be for very different purposes, depending on which beings we're talking about. And so some of them seem to be more for their interest, that they're studying us. They want to understand our biology, our physiology, how we work, how we react to certain things, our emotions, certain aspects of our abilities and our intelligences. But then other beings seem to be very, very caring about the people they take for these experiences. And when they have them on the medical table, their function, those ETs, seems to be to check them physically, and if there is anything wrong physically with the abducted person, they will either heal that then and there, right there on the table, or they will tell the person to tell their own doctor when they're back on Earth to check into that particular system, like their liver or kidney or whatever has been detected to be amiss. So in those cases, the beings seem to be much more caring, and they have other agendas for those people, such as teaching them psychic skills and how to do healing, how to do telepathy, how to do telemetry, and so forth, and so that they can use those skills back here on Earth for the betterment of the people they know.
Well, thank you.
So anyway, there's a wide variety.
I thank you. We'll get back to you. And I think Grant may have a different point of view about this evolution of experience, but I want to bring, and if any of the moderators want to jump in.
Can I just jump in here?
Sure.
I just wanted to say I'm really glad that what Barbara just said, because just recently I watched an interview on the Paul Wallace channel, but I believe it was with Richard Dolan. And they were saying that when there is an abduction happening, whether in a car or in a bedroom, the partner's consciousness is shut off. Right. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Is like, how are they able to shut our consciousness off and then turn it back on once, they've completed what they've done? I really like Grant is smiling there because I know I'm going to get a download from him.
Well, can we just go around the room once and have everyone say something, and we'll come back to Barbara with that question?
And Celestine seems to be bursting with energy, so she wants to answer that too. We'll get back to her.
Celestine, come in. And then we'll get back to that question for Barbara.
Okay. So I was 7 years old, living in New Mexico, Almaguer, where they were doing the testing. And believe it or not, our government decided to put off, test 10 atomic bombs at one time. They ripped the sky in two. Literally dark on one side, sun on the other. I've spoken to people that have experienced this, but it stayed that way for almost a week. Warbling, snow on the ground on one side, and clear skies on the other, a delineating line. The moment that happened, I believe we as humans put ourselves in the position by ripping the sky in two, we sent out a message. And from that time on, we had huge saucers appear on the freeways, because it was hot freeways then, big Studebakers, Fords, whatever. And these ships would come by, and the cars would stop and get out and look. Okay, so as it turns out, my stepfather was a sky watcher, because we started watching these spaceships, and he decided to follow one with the family in the car. So we're all trying to figure out, where are you going? We didn't realize he was going to follow one. So he followed it for miles. I remember the turquoise hills, and I remember this and that, and all of a sudden it landed. When it landed, we ended up in the spaceship. It was tall grays, and we were on the tables, we were being examined. And I didn't have a fear because I was metaphysically trained at different shapes and forms. So my brother was having hysterias. He was, he still had problems after this happened. But they were letting me know, number one, what we had done. That we had opened the field, and they had come in to see what we had done, what we were about. You have to remember, we were eating DDT. Our parents were feeding us, all kind of chemicals, opiates in our cough syrups, cocaine. There was a lot of reason to do a study on the human anatomy and the emotions and whatever. So I had a deeper understanding about all this. It wasn't just random. And I do know when I was up in Middletown, as a hypnotherapist, there was a lot of this abduction going on. And I discovered, through doing hundreds, that number one, some were used for their eggs, for reproduction. I think the little grays had an agenda in which a lot of people would remember that they were trying to get their emotional body back. They had lost the ability to have a child because the heads were too big, so they cloned. The cloning came on style. So that was my experience, and some were used, the women started getting yeast, and they would collect the yeast and use it on their skin. And I literally came in the room because my partner would get abducted, and I saw the grays pulling him off the bed and making noise or doing loud, they're kind of insects, they had group mind. They disappeared, right? So we learned about sound and but we also learned that the government gave permission to many of them to be studied. So there was an interconnection between the government. There's more to the story, but that's what I want to say, that these abductions were very interesting. When you really got to it, they cannot do anything to you without your permission. Mm-hmm. So we uncovered a lot of agreements and contracts with the mother and the father, and then the children then became a part of that study program. So I just want to put that on the table. And I know Barney Hill and they were near a very high active area of extraterrestrials. If you live, like I lived in Middletown, they were everywhere. Everybody saw them all the time. So eventually there was interaction with it, and I had interaction. So I think they just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Or the wrong place or the wrong,
wrong place, because I think if you really did a deep study with them, and I know they're probably, it's no longer
probably watching. Yes.
They may have said, yes, I made an agreement on some soul level, to go through the experience. And what's their lineage? What's their galactic lineage? There's so much more to unpack.
Yes.
Right. I want to just go back to Kathleen because, the contact phenomena has been through so many permutations of understanding, and Grant does say, well, it's an agreement. If there's more than one lifetime, then, I can't say it exactly the way he says it because, he has that original style. But if we come in more than one lifetime, it's agreement and it's all okay. But Kathleen, do you find that? Do you find that to be true, that maybe on some level, Betty and Barney Hill, because they were both traumatized, like a lot of abductees, do make an agreement on one level to interact with these beings? I guess a higher spiritual level?
I suspect that Betty was an experiencer, that she'd had experiences prior to the contact event that she and Barney remembered. And the reason I think that is because she invited them back. And her escort said, well, it's not my decision to make. Maybe we can come back. And Betty said, well, how would you find me? Out of all the people on this planet, how would you find me? And he replied, this is all telepathic. He replied, we always find those that we're looking for. Wow. It leads me to believe that they were looking for Betty and they found her. She happened to be in that location at that time. They took her more than one time during her lifetime. I just think that she probably didn't remember. The ETs told me that they had taken my family for, I believe it was 5 generations. I could be wrong, it could be 6. And it is intergenerational in my family.
Wow, great. Well, I want to bring Kamara Jones into the discussion because I think, you know, we've all had this background, and I think in a way, Kamara, you represent the next level of experiencer, especially how you're putting into your art. Grant, you're going to love her art. And so, Kamara, you want to say about something about your interchange and being a bridge, and also show some of your art? I would love Barbara and Kathleen and Mary and everyone to see this. But you want to just tell us a little? Yeah.
Yeah, let me really quick here. I can kind of share while I'm talking here.
Yeah.
So
for me, this makes so much sense. It just kind of, I think these are the beings I met. So this is from her transmigration series.
So what's interesting about, you know, like this one, for instance, is that a lot of my experiences, I believe, happened during time, like subconscious, but more than anything during hypnagogic states. That's when I kind of receive a lot of my art, a lot of my imagery, in between waking and sleeping. And I feel like I'm being fed information. And I can count, I can't even count on my hands, like the amount of times where I've woken up from a dream and felt like a being is actually walking away from me as if it was transmitting information into my mind. This idea of shutting off consciousness, as I think Barbara Lamb was saying, is very resonant because I feel like sometimes I'm completely detached, not just from my body, but from my perception as, you know, Kamora. And when I had my major experiences in 2017, one of the things that I experienced was this, that I saw was this void space, this sort of planetary space. It felt like a solid space, but it also felt very void-like. And there was a sort of a cocoon, sort of home-like structure, like a housing unit. And I lived there, but I was also a part of it as a being attached to a unit or being attached to a cocoon. And my thoughts weren't human thoughts. They were very, I don't know, infantile is the word I tend to use, because it didn't feel like human thoughts. And so, you know, assuming that humans are intelligent in any way. So yeah, a lot of my pieces are very much in line with this idea of higher consciousness as it relates to beings that aren't so attached to gender per se, like the male and the female, but are more attached to this sort of elevated position in regards to how we can think about consciousness and how we can expand consciousness. And as humans, it's like, I feel like what they're trying to teach me is, you know, you can kind of get past this sort of base level humanity and evolve from a creative standpoint. So maybe you can like evolve your culture.
Right. And as light language encoded, Mary or Grant, Mary, you have something to comment about what you're seeing here? Anything comes to you?
Well, this is beautiful, Kamara. I have to say, the artwork has always drawn me. And I remember one artist saying to me, it's acting as a perceptual trigger to open us up to our experiences and what have you. And certainly I find myself absolutely buzzing just looking at this. I want to scan it with my hand, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just want to keep scanning it. Which I find I always need to do whenever I see certain artwork. I want to sort of scan it. But for me, this is all the activation. You know, for me, that's, you know, these are the packages of activation that are, you know, part of what's happening on the planet now. I think they're stunning, Kamara. Right. I just think they're absolutely stunning. So thank you for sharing them.
Yeah. And Grant, you've looked at a lot of UFO. I'm just curious about what you think of some of these images.
Yeah, well, again, we come down to patterns. Even you and I did an interview. We did the connection between art and experiencers. There's a huge connection, as there is with music. So that's the first thing that I would bring up. And the other one is, she mentions it comes in the hypnagogic state and hypnopompic state. And I did contact modalities, and that's this whole idea of getting in the field. That you have to shut down the ego, the sort of left brain default mode network, When you're asleep, that's almost like Bashar says, we come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world. So you see these patterns over and over again. Yeah, there's a lot of artists who are experiencers, and it may be because they're very right-brained. They don't have this analytical side that's blocking the signal all the time, and that's why they have this big connection to art. And Nicole Sackage and I have done a number of panels and interviews with artists that are experiencers.
But I just love, I mean, we don't have to talk all about the art, but I think it's just such a kind of evolution to the experiences that now we're actually getting the experience through the art. I mean, there's a kind of transmission. Do you think, Joan, were you going to say something, Joan?
Can I ask a question about the color? I noticed the color, it looks almost like psychedelic colors. Can she explain maybe why she's using these colors that she's using?
Yeah.
They're not ordinary art colors.
Yeah, so what's interesting is when I had my initial experiences that I had, so throughout my whole life, I've had sort of lucid dreams and sort of astral projections, and I felt like I've had these connections with these different beings and with guides. When I had my experiences in 2017, they were more psychedelic in nature, but albeit just through marijuana, not through anything that was specifically known as like a psychedelic. But I was also kind of tuned into it at the end of 2016. I felt like my guides were guiding me to get deeper into my to sort of remember or get deeper into my understanding of like past life regression or reincarnation and the mechanics of the soul. And so what basically happened, and I'm actually going to kind of get to the end here, what basically happened is that during these experiences, there's this sort of shift of sort of color field. And this sort of staggering of the reality frame. And so each color, so anybody who studied color theory kind of knows about how different colors vibrate. What I kind of got from that is that each color vibration actually has information embedded in it, and not just, photonic information, but literal communication coming from source. So it could be said that the light coming from the sun has certain sort of data bits actually encoded into, the fractals that are actually, kind of coming from the sun or from the photons within the sun. And so I was being given this impression that light, sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just saw there's symbols. Do you have symbols as well? Because Mary gets into this as well, that the
Right.
transfer of information is not just verbally, it's symbols and colors and
Look at the light language. That's translations of people, I would think, right, Kamara?
So if you look at this sort of stream right here, if you can kind of see my cursor, this sort of stream of information, this is like a stream that's being shared between this particular soul and higher consciousness or source. And so the idea with these colors was that some of these colors are muted, some of these colors are very saturated, but the colors themselves are also translating information. And so it's this idea that you can't just think of communication in terms of grammar or in terms of like sort of phonetic, dialogue. You need to think of conversation and communication in terms of energy and feeling, and that telepathy. If you think about the mechanics of telepathy, it has to do more with sort of feeling and thinking and intention, rather than just communication in terms of grammar, how you write something, how you speak something through a language structure. So the colors are very much infused with this idea of imbuing feeling into these transmissions. And in color theory in general, color is vibration. And so when you're creating a composition, you're trying to create colors that sort of take the person into a specific sort of feeling or emotional space as it is. So all of that from an artistic standpoint is working towards the construct of what the message itself is saying. So
Right.
yeah.
Wait, and Joan, were you going to jump in as an artist yourself?
Well, it's interesting. So I get a lot of information from painting. In fact, if I feel stuck, I just go in and meditate, and then I just let spirit take my pen or whatever I'm doing, and then I get the information. So it's a very, very interesting process for me. I do know that I was an abductee for many years, and going to bed was terrifying for me. I heard them coming up the stairs night after night. I didn't know that those were ETs at that time. I was thinking someone was breaking in my door I don't know. It was pretty bad. Go ahead. Was that my echo? Okay. So I didn't know. And then one day it all stopped.
Wow.
And completely stopped. And I was for the first time able to sleep in peace. But when I moved to Baja and formed a group called Baja Paranormal. And that's when I started to have a lot of visual sightings of ships. And I had dreams of being in the ship. And I was told that what my mission was. And it's kind of interesting because my extraterrestrial, who I picked up at Neil's first live event, gives me information. Like I told you the other day, when I left him in the living room, he said, well, what am I, chopped liver? But no, he did say that, but because he has a good sense of humor. But even while we were talking, after Kamora did her whole beautiful thing, I started bringing in this, you can't see
I
him.
really see it. What is that?
Yeah, but
Green screen.
wow, you can't see him at all. It's my green screen. Well, I started to bring in someone who said to me that he was an emperor, of other worlds. So that's part of the experiences that
I was wondering, Alan, just to jump in here really quick, looking at Kamora's art there. Now, the craft that was interacted with at Rendlesham, and they reported that there was hieroglyphs on the ship. I'm wondering if that's the same type of hieroglyphs that was on that ship, or is it something totally different, or are we dealing with a different people that speak a different language?
It also looked like the hieroglyphs in some crop circles, that kind of fluid light, but it just comes to you, right, Kamara? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my symbols are more intuitive. I'm very sure of that. That being said, I mean, don't misunderstand the fact, as Barbara and many others have said, that there are different races of beings, so different types of communication. And even in my Christian days, when I was studying like angels and demonology and stuff like that, I kind of felt like there was this idea that each individual has their own very unique intuitive connection with source. And that if you can kind of understand that, it's possible that there are so many different sort of fractalized languages and dialects just with energetic communication that, maybe it's a lot more expanded than we even think it is at this point in time.
Right. I just
want to ask a question.
Wait. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to ask Kamara a question. If you know the story at the aerial school, Emily Trim was the Canadian girl who was one of the two that was confronted by the being right in front of her. And she started painting about 5 years ago. She had a second encounter with them in Canada. And she said that just like took her life right over. And she started painting. She's painted hundreds and hundreds of paintings. And she has the symbols the same as you. And she says the symbols are the most important part of the painting. Do you have any idea what these symbols are other than them being language?
So what's been revealed to me is that they are energetic containers for different types of awakening, for different types of ascension. And so you can encapsulate an idea into a symbol. And as people in Reiki talk about this, I heard somebody in Reiki talk about this before, but you can take those symbols, you can embed them in your light body. And when you embed them in your light body, they actually have a chemical reaction, shall we say a light reaction, if you will. And they have the ability to help you in your work, whatever you're trying to do. So it's like, it's like chunking things into like a code structure and then eating it and then using that energy that comes from that, sort of metabolizing that energy in your light body. So yes, the symbols are the most important thing. And I'm going to look up her work because I'm new to all this. I'm very new. I'm learning a lot and I'm very thankful for
What was her name, Grant? What was her name?
Emily Trim.
Okay. I want to go, I hear Brandon's story about his contact, but Rob, can you just talk about your reaction to what you just saw here? Because it was great in the comment. If you can, Rob.
It was, for me, when I see those things, it starts, like Mary said, it starts to buzz. And I waved my hand over it and it just felt immense. It felt heavy. It felt like there was a story behind all of it too. And for me, when I look at those and I see those geometric shapes and then it starts to move in some of those other pictures, it was just incredible. I was like mesmerized. And I've been going back and going through my recollection because I haven't had an experience up until recently. So now it's making me go back and reevaluate all the times that maybe I thought I've missed something or didn't see it properly. So I'm still in this process of collecting the data of what exactly has happened at this point. And it's wild because I feel like what you said before, Alan, with the contract, I feel like I manifested that contact from doing this and talking to people. But because my fiance was out there with me, and I know she doesn't feel the same way I do about these types of subjects. And I thought, what would it be for her to really see something? And then boom, we did together. And it was just the wildest thing. And she lit up like, I don't even want to give you that because, she was like, I don't want to give it to you, but I have no idea what that was. And I said, well, and then it happened again weeks later. Weeks later, I was in Texas. I'm in New York now, and I'm right by Indian Point. So this is somewhat of a hotspot, but I don't, normally when you're not having those experiences, you don't tend to look up like that. But I had been for a while before that too, almost as if I knew it was coming. It was this wild, paradigm that I need to evaluate properly.
Thank you. We have such an awesome panel here of people who've been in this field for 40 years and new people emerging. And it's like Grant said last night, it's a complex field, but it's all consciousness. And let's talk to the experiences. So let's hear what Brendan, I heard you want to share your story here with some of the people who are great to talk to about this. And
thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. And thank you again to everyone for being here. I'll be able to stick around maybe for about 15, 20 minutes before I have to go back to tending my pregnant partner at the moment. And gladly to do so, right? We'll tune in when we can. We've been watching kind of on and off here and there.
But give us a short kind of overview of your experience.
And I'd love to. So one thing that I'll tie in as well related to the art, and I love being able to listen to Kamora and being a fan of your work over the many years. It's wonderful to even just be in the space here. And again, thank you to everyone, and Grant and everyone, and Barbara, great to see you again as well. And so long story short, being here is actually me being here on behalf of Lacey and I. So the experience that we had, much like what we were talking about, we become ambassadors of that experience. When I look at me and Lacey, a lot of the moments that continue to come after the experience, which for us was a CE5 initiated contact experience with the light that was actually like quite low. It was like less than like 70, 80 meters above us. And it was a very personal experience. And I'll give a quick recount of that in a second. But to me, with myself and with Lacey, I know a lot of the experience itself has continued to inspire us as artists. And the one thing that I want to say that I think is really important is that, for any people who are inspired by the ET phenomena, the OU phenomena, the other us phenomena, even the art that we create, looking at examples from Kamora is a beautiful representation of how people can get inspired, and it becomes this version of art that depicts visualizations of ET and light language. But I think at the same time, it's also, and I'm saying this to plant the seed for anyone, is that, the ETs, they don't necessarily they're not asking us, hey, like, if you're going to be inspired by us, make art about us. It's more so, hey, if you're going to be inspired about our message, we're just the messenger. And the message that we carry is actually what we're really sharing. And the message is love. And the message is, bringing people back to the heart center, which is what I keep saying. So that's where, for me, having this experience, I talk about it here and there, but a lot of it just inspires me to continue to be on this bigger mission. And not that it's a bigger mission, just this other dimension of the mission, which is, again, just about like creating conscious community, creating conscious discussion, helping people see the magic that is all around them. Because I think the ET phenomenon, at the very least, and as we've already solidified here, it's again kind of like that little pebble in the lake that creates an opportunity for people to be able to begin questioning, is there more to this reality? And absolutely it is. And so with Lacey and myself and with all the artists, I don't think our job is to be ambassadors of our experience, but I don't think our job is necessarily to say like, hey, believe this. It's more so like, like what do you think? Like, what do you want to be able to look further towards? And the question is something that is lived for each and every single person, because going back to, and I'll just share my experience. So my experience with Lacey and I, and again, I'm sharing this just as an example of what's possible, especially as a representation of the fact that we did this as like a conscious couple, like a relationship. So CE5, human initiated contact, We went out there. It was up in Muskoka area in Ontario, northern wooded area, a little bit of like, we were up at a private cottage, and we were doing meditation. We had the intention to do CE5. And then I was out there for a little bit on the lake. And this is a super short version, but then Lacey came in, and then literally within that moment, probably about 10, 15 minutes after that, we saw like the kind of individual blips in the sky. Those blips ended up kind of focusing us towards a quadrant of the sky, like they were gathering our attention. And then out of that, like a clearly visible craft came down, and Lacey described it as basically it was like almost like a light body craft, like a Merkaba. She explained it as having like a single column in the middle that was like a column of light, and then there were these like oscillating energy things off the side, almost like wings, but again, you know, also much like the Merkaba field. This came down, and this is about a 30-second experience where it was quite low to us, and we were able in that moment to really just like, you know, telepathically connect to it. Very surreal experience and incredibly transformational, incredibly psychedelic. And then after that, long story short, that night, Lacey actually had a dream where the contact experience continued, and the being came to her in the form of like a shape-shifting. It showed up as like a golden retriever, and then it kind of took her to like a place where there was like a craft buried underneath this monolithic circle, and then it like showed her a couple other places. So that to me has always been this idea that, you know, the dream space, the UFO phenomena, or the OU phenomena, as me and Lacey call it, the other us's, which is another thing. Instead of just referring to them as OU, as UFOs or ETs, OUs, other us's, kind of refers to the craft and the participants as well. But yeah, knowing that I'm just only here for a little bit, I did just want to put that reminder that for those of us, any of us, whether we've had an experience or not, you know, it's beautiful to be inspired by the ET phenomena, but they are just the messengers towards the message. What is the message? And the message is, whether or not you've had an ET phenomena experience, if you can feel the wisdom coming through people such as experiencers who have talked about it, that's just another way of initiating that magic that is already inside of you. And going back to like the wizard and the Merlin stuff, it's helping people see the magic that is within this world around them, and then bring it back to that place of self-empowerment to know that, you know, they have more ability to be able to co-create within it. So, you know, aliens, humans, whatever we are, it's like we are the dream awakening to itself is something that I like to say. And I think the ET phenomenon does a very good job of doing that. So shout out to everybody for being a part of this discussion. And let's keep creating art that's going to inspire people's hearts. That's what I say. That's what the ETs would want, right? So
got the thumbs up from Grant, you know, so it's not about the external phenomena. It's about what it does for us is sort of what you're saying. It's like, there's a Buddhist saying, don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon, you know? So it's like, it's pointing towards this greater reality. So Kathleen, has there been an evolution in the phenomena since the beginning? I mean, do you see that, what Grant's sort of saying? It's all about consciousness, and, you know, P.S. Barbara's working with people who've had, you know, hardcore experience, and Mary's listening to these kids with this great vision, and, you know, Michelle's taking notes on it, which is great, that, you know, because she's at the Disclosure Fest. So do you see this evolution, or is it getting back to where Brendan is sort of starting from, like it's all consciousness?
There has been an evolution in human attitude, I think. But in my presentation tomorrow, I'll be talking about initially communication all the way back to 1954 that involves consciousness and much more. And we humans and experiencers have moved forward to a greater understanding with the help of people like Dolores Cannon, who brought so much information to us, and many more, Barbara, Mary, and thank God for people who are doing this work, and you too, Grant, probably many more people here that I really don't know well, but we are absolutely going through an evolution of consciousness. And more experiencers are telling me about the high-pitched sounds in their heads, and the electrical tingling through the crown chakra that moves throughout the body. And I felt that happened in me, Kamora, as I was looking at your art. Incredible.
Right. And Celestine, you've been connected for a long time. Talk about that awakening of the crown and bringing in all that new conscious awareness.
Yes. I first of all, I'd like to show as I'm talking a little bit of my art. And Kamara, thank you. And I feel like the writing is that light language. And in my Nubian life, you know, my Egyptian background, they call it the netters, you know, because when you look at a curve or a sound or a movement, you have to read it from the heart, you know, light language, speaking. When I speak in my Syrian, another being can understand what I say through the heart. But the first, you know, when you say opening of the crown, just raising my frequency in a natural way. I was out in the woods, in the mountains, and I became a yogini. I was out there constantly in this pure state, and the frequency and vibration of my body was there with the galactics, and they would go over, but there wasn't really the connection. But eventually, when I came to a certain frequency within myself, or a certain state of being, then they began to communicate. The immortals began to appear to me. My life changed immediately in having these kind of connections. And even as a child of 7, you know, it stays with you, but you bury it deep because you have to go in and become the corporate, you know, doing the optician and doing the work. But really, these like 40 years plus has brought such illumination that my own path has become the path of enlightenment. And I think, Kamara, you are on that path of enlightenment. You have picked up the pen and created these beautiful pieces from the depths of, it's like an impulse from beyond even the beings that you are drawing, or the light energies that you are drawing. It's a message to humanity. So I'd like to just show 2 pieces. I think it's really a message. So these are 2 of my pieces here, and this is the first one. It just expresses what I call the Temple of Light. Up above the words Temple of Light is an actual starship that I took a picture of. And so it's encoded with information. And I think, Kamara, yours is definitely encoded. And as I say, it goes like when you're before the image, you know, what I got was that there was an intelligence speaking to me through your work. So thank you so much. And I've always been a fan of Grant Cameron, so thank you. I'm so glad to be on this panel with you. I love you so much. And we've talked a couple of times before. And then, so I have, you know, on the right side is my practice in healing people, awakening people, taking them into the depths of their DNA. They get to clear their DNA. They get to move their consciousness. They get to awaken to their divinity. And the other side is pulling forth the mystical quality. I think this is what's behind the veil. These pictures that, Kamara, that you're showing are like pulling back the veil and what can be in a situation that's positive. Like, you know, I don't feel fear in looking at the pictures that you brought forth. I think they're extraordinary and they're loving, and I want to lean in. I want to see it. The same as Joan of Angel. Her pictures are extraordinary as well. I'm going to show you one more because this one has the light language in it. Let's see if I can get it to move over. Here we go. And this one's of the ancestors, you know. So my ancestors are the star people, both the Native American and the Egyptian. And so I know exactly, you know, the Syrians came in through the Stargate at the Mountain of the Moon, you know, where the 2 Niles meet, 2 rivers meet, the Nile. And so these images of the pyramid and the snakes, the Sphinx, but you'll see the Syrian writing.
It's 9 o'clock.
Oops.
The Syrian writing at the bottom. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I can't turn that off. Go.
Okay. And so I actually have memory of how to write in Syrian. And so this is very similar if you look at Kamara's, but it's a light language. And I had the pleasure, because of a death of a child, let me just come back to me and come out. I wrote to the Dalai Lama, and I wrote a whole page in just Syrian. I just wrote it in the Syrian light language, and he wrote back to me in the understanding of what I wrote to him. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I think that we're at a place where humanity is ready to receive. We're ready to understand the higher nature of ourselves. We've done enough in the lower, and I can't wait till it's almost over. And I'm just so grateful. But my own awakening is happening in this moment with all of you being able to step out and awakening others. You know, what a blessing for 40 years, awakening people to their consciousness and having the study, as you say, not as a researcher, but being a part of humanity's evolution of consciousness. So I'm really, really grateful. Thank you, Alan, for letting me talk.
That was amazing, Celestine. And so you gave me the emphasis. I'd like to share some of my pictures of where I go in my ascension process too. And it's so interesting how different all of our expressions are. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I got it all ready and prepped, if that's okay.
Okay. Because then I want to ask Mary after you what she thinks of all this. Oh,
Okay.
nice. I haven't
So
seen these.
These are
No,
new.
you haven't. And I actually had prepared this for on Friday. I had a meditation for it. But these are some of the places that I go to when I am in this state. Okay.
Nice.
And they're really the ancient ones. This is where I'm called. This is where I get information that comes to me. And so I'm always going in through this portal of awakening. Just show you one or two more. Yeah, so you can see the ancient temples here, little beings that come up. These are some of the first ones that I did. But always going into portals. My work, I just love to go into portals, and that's how I kind of see those energies. Oh yeah, and into what this one came to me as the seed of life, and that we were all, many of us are source beings, and that's the kind of energy that we have. Yeah, and this was even another one. It's like the seed of life right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So thank you, guys. Okay.
Thank you.
I've never not shown my art in a event.
You know,
Oh, it's
I
better.
think all this is so great. And I want to ask Mary, and other people can jump into, you know, what we see with these artists here, Mary, is beyond, going beyond words. So, I mean, my theory is that these beings don't think in words the way we do. It's more an abstract sort of language communication. Is that what you're getting from the starseeds you're working with? Or are you getting something else?
Well, some of them are translatable, interestingly, but there's some of them that are not. And they're the compressed files, I believe, of the software for the new upgraded human. So that when we get activated more with our DNA, we will need a new operating system. And the new operating system is the compressed files, the symbols that are the compressed files of information that are then going to allow us to operate more multidimensionally. And that's how I see it. As we get activated, we're going to need this to understand our greater reality, to be able to work with our greater reality. And the interesting thing is, one of the young ladies that described to me that if you look at the word Christmas, for example, immediately all these other offshoots come from Christmas, like Christmas trees, Santa Claus, dinner, or all the you know, the festivities. It leads into this matrix of information. And because I said, well, why is it that we get some that can't be translated? What's the purpose of that? And you know, I asked the team. And the team said, Mary, when you actually become more activated and more multidimensionally aware, this reality will no longer work for you. You are going to need new software for the upgraded human. There's your software, and it's waiting, and it's all about timing. And that made sense to me. So that's how I understand it.
Thank you. It's a good thing we all have computers to know exactly what you're talking about.
I want to jump in, Alan.
Grant, yeah, come on in, Grant. Yes.
As I've always said, I think this is you'll hear experiencers talk about when they ask the beings, like, why are you making me do this? Why are you taking me to school? And they always say, when the time is right, you'll know what to do. And so there's this sort of aspect where I think it's almost like the New York Times article where we fought for years to get UFOs recognized. And suddenly the New York Times does the article and everybody goes, yeah, I knew that already. And then it was like abduction. Yeah, we knew that already. And we're going to this point where it's going higher and higher. We're going to get to the point where people are going to suddenly realize, yeah, we know there's these messages in the writing. We know there's this, and that's when it opens up to the public. So there's a small group of us now know about the symbols and about the vibration and all that kind of stuff. But it's a matter of time. And we always, as you know, Westerners, we want everything yesterday. But this will come in its time. And I think all this will become very important when the time is right.
Well, that's why Neil's doing this. Neil, tell us. I mean,
yeah, you know what? Like, I took quite a lot of notes and so many directions we can go with, but I want to concentrate on what seems to be a common thread, which is frequency, right? So I just want to break down 3 different things that was said that really just go back to like the whole concept of everything is vibration, right? I believe that every single sense, everything's vibration. So everything that we perceive with our senses is some sort of vibration, whether it's an art piece that we're looking at that's unlocking a frequency within us, whether it's looking at the flower of life or the Metatron's cube, whether it's an aroma, a smell, your smell sense, and now you have essential oils and different smells, or if it's music, spoken word, music has frequency. So we have the ability to convey frequency and vibration, harmonic, disharmonic, through every single aspect of this, all the senses that we're able to perceive our reality in. So what we're talking about here is just the frequencies for the next bandwidth of existence, right? We're in this bandwidth right here, and now we're going to another bandwidth. I think the whole higher, lower construct is a linear construct that it's really beyond higher dimensions and lower dimensions. You know, when you talk about frequencies, there's the Schumann resonance, which is harmonic frequency, but it's a low vibration. So saying high and low doesn't really work. But that's just one component right there about, you know, what's being said about frequency. And then another thing that I've done a presentation on and I've spoke about a lot is, I did an article actually once called "What does meditation and spirituality have to do with UFOs?" And then the answer was equals, it's a frequency game. And the whole thing is that when we can't see and perceive ETs, like I believe there's thousands, if not tens of thousands of crafts and light ships all around us all the time, even like parked on like around Mount Shasta and all that. But why can't we see them? It's because it's a frequency game where within this bandwidth, they exist within another bandwidth. We need to figure out how to match the frequencies and shift into that vibration. So as we move towards this ascension, as we continue to harmonize the frequencies on the planet, I feel there's going to be miraculous sightings even more and more. And some of them are going to have been there the whole time. It's not like all of a sudden they're here. We just happen to now be in that reality, right? Exactly. And then just last thing here about what Grant just said. He said that someone said, when the time is right, right? And that reminded me of what the Israeli space chief said, that we're not ready for contact with the Galactic Federation. So what does the time is right mean? It means you need to work on yourself so you can get to the frequency so that the time can be right, you know?
Like, great. So Omar, in light of what Neil just said, do you want to ask Barbara that question again, including like the frequency, that one that you just asked in the beginning there?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. And I remember Grant's smile, so I wouldn't mind hearing Grant's opinion on this about, shutting off the human consciousness when there's 2 people in a room and your partner gets shut off and you can't get their attention. Meanwhile, there's this, ET contact is happening. So, and I saw this on the Paul Wallace channel with Richard Dolan, and I believe Richard Dolan was talking about this, really piqued my interest. And, now that I have Grant Cameron in front of me that understands consciousness, better than myself, I'd love to hear his input on this.
And then Barbara will ask her to.
Yeah, please.
Okay, as I said, this is a very common pattern. John Lennon described his experience where the beings come to the door in the Dakota Hotel. He's trying to wake up Yoko Ono. He can't wake her up. This is pretty common. Ray Hernandez actually tells a very interesting story when he started Free. That's where Free comes from. When his dog got healed, his wife is saying, come down, come down, come down. And he goes running down, and there's this beam, this sort of a bar of light, and goes, BS, and goes back to bed. And he basically will say right now, they said, no, we're working with your wife here, go back to bed. And he lay in bed for 45 minutes and went, oh my God, what did I do? And he goes running back downstairs, and the dog is cured. The dog is running around. So they do that. They not only turn people off like in sleep, they do it in real life. And the other one example was Jo Wood, who is from the Rolling Stones. She was married to Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. She tells a very common story that people tell. Her husband sees this UFO. They're off the coast. They're on the coast of Brazil, and he yells, "Come on, Joe, come on, look at this thing." And then he's looking, and he says, "Oh, I gotta go get my glasses." He goes running back to the house, and that's when the whole event happens. And it's like, we don't want you here. This is for Joe. We don't need you here. And the last example I'll give you is this is from a Millab experience. One woman told me the story. She's in this Millab experience where she's trying to get dressed. She's trying to get going. She's got her slippers and her dog. She's got a big, huge dog, and the dog is lying on one of her slippers. And she can't get the dog. The dog is knocked out. She's trying to move the dog to get the slipper. And then she goes, to heck with it. So she goes into the experience with one slipper on. So this is pretty common. It's almost like you'll see this over and over again, that they'll, like the guy that ran the California group for LA told the story where his wife was up and forgot her wine. They're on the roof of their house by the pool, and she said, I forgot the wine. And she went down, and he said, that's when the experience happened. These things flew over, almost like we don't need you here. This experience is for somebody else. So it's very common, I think, but it's not just making people go to sleep. It's making people forget their glasses, go off, and that's when the thing happens.
Wow, Barbara, you too get this idea of switched on, switched. What were you going to say, Omar?
I was just going to say, wow, that's amazing. Not only can they do it to humans, but dogs also. But at the end of the day, we share the same consciousness too, right? Dogs are an expression of the infinite. So thank you, Grant. That really answered my question.
Yeah. So Barbara, comment on that too.
I think it's amazing how they can influence us. And I mean, you've just given some examples that are good ones. In terms of frequency, I'd also like to mention a slightly different aspect. And that is that at least when I personally have had what I consider close sightings of a UFO, various types, different occasions, I have felt a really different frequency coming from those objects, coming to me and affecting me. And the way that I interpreted that at the time when they were happening, a few different incidents over the years, the way that I always talked about it was that I felt an incredible sense of presence, presence, presence. In other words, that even though I wasn't seeing beings, I was seeing the craft, or in one case, there were 7 identical lenticular shaped clouds in a little formation right above, maybe it seemed like 20 or 30 feet above me and a few other people. And we just stopped in our tracks and looked up, and there was that huge sense of presence. In other words, we didn't see the crafts themselves or beings in the crafts, but there was a huge sense of being observed. They were there. Those weren't just clouds.
Right.
They were there, and they were observing us. There was a connection, a frequency. Now I think of it more in terms of frequency, a frequency connection that went right through my entire being, so that I just stopped in my tracks. I wouldn't say I couldn't move, but I didn't move. But I was so filled with this frequency, with this sense of presence and awe and wonder and delight. It was just, and it was so unexpected. This happened to be at the first UFO Congress I ever went to in Mesquite, Nevada, 1990 or 1991. And I thought, how perfect that these crafts are right next to and above the big conference center where all the speakers were speaking about UFOs and extraterrestrials. How perfect that these 7 objects congregated there and waited there for some of us. I mean, as if they knew what was going on. Then there was another time I was at a conference in New Mexico about 4 or 5 years ago. And during the lunch break, I was sitting on the porch of the hotel that this UFO conference was in. And the woman sitting opposite me looked out past where I was, looked out across the town toward the horizon. And she said, "Oh, they're here." And of course I whipped around. Who? And she said, "Well, the UFOs." So there at the edge of town, probably a mile or so away, this was a small town, there were the beautiful lenticular shaped, thick white cloud just sitting there a little bit above the horizon. And that woman I was having lunch with was from the local area. So she said, "Oh yeah, every time we have a UFO conference here, one of these crafts, or sometimes more, will always sit there a little bit of distance away, and they're picking up everything that everybody is saying in that conference." And even from that distance away, I had that same feeling of presence or frequency that they, whoever they are in that craft, embedded in that cloud, they were totally aware of us being aware of them. And just for me personally, that is a really profoundly delightful, meaningful experience. And then I've had personal experiences with beings too, but even just with those sightings, it's indescribable, but I think some of you know what I mean about that sense of presence and frequency.
Thank you. I just want to get to Michelle.
Just very quickly, Alan, I just wanted to say this is almost like vindication, because my wife, she takes a lot of pictures of clouds, and we see objects in the clouds, and these are some very big objects, sometimes very small objects. And when she comes home, she tells me about them, and sometimes we see them together. And even as open-minded as I am, I've been thinking that I'm going crazy because I'm seeing these things in the sky, and we're photographing them. And so this is really cool that Barbara really vindicated that what we're seeing in the sky are not actually clouds, that we're actually being interacted with. But mostly it's my wife that's being interacted with than myself, because all of these encounters happen when she's out and walks by herself. But when I'm with her, it's not happening. Well, sometimes, but not really.
But it's about the feeling. Michelle, you want to talk about that magic feeling, that feeling, that connection and the frequencies?
Thank you so much. I'm just enjoying hearing all of these stories. And what I was thinking, I know I talked to Celestine about this on Awakening Code Radio on Tuesday, about the feeling, and that it's, for me, it hasn't always been visual. So the feeling that comes over my heart, the telepathic transmissions that come through, and I haven't, been focused on the ship aspect so much as just getting the messages through that telepathic transmission. The 2 times they did visit me in my bed, you know, a lot of people will say, well, that was just a dream. And I'll say, no, it wasn't a dream. It was definitely telepathy. And the sense that I get is this is the original language, is telepathic. We have all these different dialects now. But before all of that, and you know, working within it now, telepathy, I think, is where we're going back to, if that makes sense. But, you know, the dolphins have been very telepathic with me. And I don't say that I channel dolphins or anything like that. But when they placed it on my heart that I was supposed to start gathering people on a catamaran that holds 55 people and going on a body of water, water being a conductor of energy, what they were transmitting to me was they were saying that when we have that many people together, focused on an intention where we have joy in our hearts and we're opening our hearts and having the intention that we're sharing that group energy with all life in every realm and dimension, we are changing the frequency and the vibration on earth. And that was so impactful when they you know, came to me and said that. My husband was like, well, what do they sound like? And I said, well, it's not like Flipper. And it's not like, you know, we're your dolphin family. It's nothing like that. It's more a heart transmission. It's very telepathic, but they made sure to give me signs to know, because I was doubting myself, like, dolphins are talking to me. This is so weird. And I went out on one of the boats and they told me, we're going to give you a gift. And when I got home, there was a call from a contest I had entered for a massage table. And I get home and the call, they told me I won this massage table. And when they told me the name of it, it was the name of a dolphin, some sort of dolphin. It was blue and it had this dolphin name. And I was like, wow, okay, so I guess that was real, you know, because I was doubting it. But now I find that the more people I talk with, there is a sense of, no, that really happened and it's real. And the mantis beings came through. When I met Neil, here's Neil. Neil, do you remember when I said, dude, you are so surrounded by mantis beings? And you were like,
oh, what? No. But I feel a connection to them. I don't remember that, but I've always like had this like connection with mantis. When I see an actual mantis, I'm just like, if I see a mantis on the road, I'll literally just stay with it for like 20 minutes.
They are so around you. And I'm not a person that usually sees that kind of stuff. It was when Michael Tillinger was here and you came over for dinner. And I was like, oh my God, the mantis beings are all around you. And I can see them with certain people. And they're so benevolent and so uber smart. And they love math. Math is a big thing. And I don't know how I know that. It's not like, you know, it's not something that I go around, you know, telling people all the time, just when it comes through. So there have been those kind of transmissions. But when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was 4.5 months pregnant. We chose not to find out the sex of our child, even though we had the ultrasound. And I personally was adopted. Our baby was conceived on Valentine's Day and due on my 30th birthday, November 5th. And these beings came to me and they looked angelic. Their essence and their vibration felt angelic, and they telepathed to me. And this was not a dream. They telepathed to me that I was carrying a girl child, and they wanted me to name her my original name at birth, which was Nikki Lee. And we were going to name her Amber. And, you know, now she jokes with me, Mom, Amber Anderson sounds like a stripper name. I'm so glad those angels came to you and you didn't name me that. But it was a really strong transmission. And I grabbed my husband and woke him up and said, babe, we're having a girl. And her name's Nikki Lee. And you know, just from that day forward, I knew that we were having a girl and her name would be Nikki Lee. And she, to this day, of course, that's her name. And during the Venus transit, my radio partner, Eric Rankin, who's the father of sonic geometry, who made those videos that went viral about sonic geometry, he was at the Integratron doing an event, and I was in Mount Shasta doing an event for the Venus Transit. And Chief Golden Light Eagle was in Mount Shasta as well, and I didn't know him yet, but I stopped by and saw him, and got to spend a little bit of time with their group. And Eric called me while I was there, and I thought, why is he calling? I'm facilitating a group right now. And he said, I didn't think you were going to pick up, but I wanted to tell you that I got a download. It was 1,111 words. And the being said to give this message to your friend, Nikki. And he said, I don't have a friend, Nikki. And they said, yes, you do. It's Michelle. So I kind of connected those dots that Nikki sounds like Nikki Lee. So they were reminding me of my star essence, I think, in that transmission to him. But what that message had, and this ties back into what you asked for, Alan, was the key component of that message was that many of these beings don't have the emotional body to feel what we feel. And I'm such a deep feeler. I mean, how many times have you seen me cry at everybody's presentations? I'm so moved that the tears just fall. And the Native Americans say that I cry for the people that can't. And my friends tell me that sometimes too. So their primary message was that if we're having a profound experience, especially where we're witnessing beauty, like with the art that's carrying all of these transmissions, we're getting activated by the art that we're seeing. And the art is very similar to the art in these pieces. I don't know if you can see all the light language in this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Brian Besco had this piece. I'm digressing here, but Brian Besco had this piece. And when I saw it with him, I'm seeing that a lot of your artwork has this light language in it. It came from Mexico, and I was just drawn to it when I saw it at a Star Knowledge Earth Shift conference where Joan was at. You remember when he was there, Joan? Brian Besco had all these pieces there. And so, and I know Mark Sims has a big collection of this, and Sim Harriman has a big collection of these ancient relics, I guess they are. I don't know if you can tell how old it is, but anyway, I saw it and I said to Brian, how did you come by that? And I was almost triggered and angry, but he said, it would, I said, did they do ceremony when they excavated this? How did it come to you? And he told me, and I said, I feel like I need to sit with this. And I sat with it for 6 hours. And when I went back to him, I said, I can't give this back to you. And it was his private piece. It wasn't even for sale. And he said to me, did you see it? Did you see the being that's there? I don't know if I can hold it to where you can see the head is right here.
Yeah.
And then there's
Yeah.
these two heads coming this way.
Looks like Kamara's images.
Looks like Kamara for sure.
I know, Kamara, you were
Almost like the
activating
same transmission is coming through.
Yeah,
The
and in the
impulse.
back, there's a bunch of those symbols.
And that's the message. Yeah, there you go. You got
So
that.
when I went back to Brian, I said, I can't give this back to you. And he said, Michelle, I can't take it back from you. I feel like you made that. And I said, I don't know that I made it, but I'm very connected with it, very connected with it. So anyway, that's traveled with me. But the message I got in Mount Shasta through Eric Rankin was that we have these feeling bodies, and they don't want us to be selfish with our feelings. When we're in gratitude or we're experiencing beauty the way that I just took it in, to just simply make the intention that we're sharing it with them. And of course, in Mount Shasta, all of you know how activated we are. Even talking about it, I have goosebumps up and down my whole body. There's so much beauty there. When you can take in the beauty with your eyes, you also can take it in with your heart, especially like at Fairy Falls and all the different meadows there and the mountain. And so I tried it, and I was at Fairy Falls looking at the waterfall, and I remembered the message, and I just opened my heart and said, I want to share this with you. And I can't even express, there's no human language to express the gratitude I felt from them, these benevolent beings that were so grateful to me for sharing that feeling with them of gratitude for the beauty that we have on this planet, on Earth. And so I'll leave you with those stories, that we have a mission here to protect this Earth and to bring us all back into harmony with her and with each other. And that oneness message has been a theme throughout this whole conference.
Thank you
very much, Michelle. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Almost brought me to tears.
Woo!
I had to shut my camera off there for a second.
My heart just opened.
That's the whole point. That is the whole point, is to know when our hearts open, feel it. And I've noticed through this whole last, couple of years, I didn't realize my heart had started closing until I had an experience that opened it again. It's usually through music or art. Beauty. This is like the new Renaissance, right? We can make this the new Renaissance. Beauty is so important. And the way that we're connecting with each other and loving on each other and listening to each other and holding each other, that really is the key to get us through to this next evolutionary process.
Thank you, Michelle. Hey, Grant, do you have to go soon? Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Can you comment on Michelle's whole idea? Well, not idea, but that sense of feeling, because we've also talked about it all being consciousness, but consciousness doesn't mean anything if you don't have the feeling, the emotional body. Or that's my opinion.
This gets into this thing about vibration and what the actual message is what I say. You've got to talk to the experiencers, then you're going to hear these messages. If you listen to the mainstream, you're going to hear about the threat and how do we protect ourselves and our airspace and all this kind of stuff. This is, I think, the message that I'm getting through the experiencers, is this message. And as I said in my presentation, oneness is the key message. Oneness and love, 54%, according to the Big Free survey. These are the messages that we have to get across. And I firmly believe we are the messengers. We have all agreed to play this role, to come in and to do this, and we take care of ourselves, and the message will spread, and everything will be okay. Or even the idea that I did one panel where we had people who had one had a near-death experience, getting thrown off a motorcycle, one was in a float tank, and one had a very traumatic life and was reading a book. And this idea that everything is perfect, and we have to sort of get this idea across to people, is that love is the key to the whole thing, and frequency and vibration, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. I guess I can close with that. We're always looking for other people to save us, but we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the messengers. We have a message, and we should do everything that we can, because in the end of your life, I firmly believe, I'm a big Michael Newton guy, I believe at the end of your life, they basically ask you one question, and that is how to work out. Because you and I wrote the script. And you can't say, oh, I forgot. Oh, well, my mother-in-law didn't make me upset. We have a role to play. And if it's a reincarnation world, we have to just worry about, we came into the world to do something probably. We got to figure out what we're supposed to do and do it. And that's the end of it, and do it the best we can. And in the end, it'll all be okay.
It's like doing a house chore.
That's such a great message. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Be in touch. Come back.
I see this incarnation as doing a house chore and just doing the best that we can, get her done.
Exactly. Well, Kathleen, when you go back to Betty and Barney Hill's trauma, and Barney particularly had such a hard time integrating that. How do we find that message of love for someone like Barney, who was really traumatized, and Betty too, but for the trauma? Yeah.
I think we need to remember that Betty and Barney were the first in the United States, the first that anyone knew about in the continental United States. And but I was reading through the transcripts from the hypnosis tapes of Barney with Dr. Benjamin Simon the other day. And Dr. Simon said to him, do you feel that you were abducted or kidnapped? Do you feel that you were kidnapped? And Barney said, no, I don't feel like I was kidnapped, because when I think of kidnapping, I feel that someone has been harmed. And Dr. Simon said, you mean you weren't harmed? And Barney said, no, I wasn't. So,
But he was
although there was-
screaming. He was screaming in fear, maybe not from harm, but I
Well,
mean,
yes, initially he
Right.
was screaming in fear because he was convinced that UFOs didn't exist. It was impossible for them to come to this earth and interact with humans. And there he was in his conscious memory, standing in a field with a craft hovering 100 feet above him, and seeing these entities, all but one, suddenly turned to what appeared to be a panel. Their arms went up and little fin-like structures started to slide out, and something started to drop down from the bottom of the craft. And he immediately felt that he was going to be captured. He said, like a bug in a net. And that is when he went screaming back to the car. When that was all conscious recall.
Right.
When under hypnosis, they were coming. The group was in the road. He recognized them because he had seen them when he was looking up at the craft, when he was standing in the field. They're in the road. They divide into two groups, 3 to Betty's door, 3 to Barney's door. And Barney was not emotional. That's when Betty became emotional. She tried to flee. She was weeping. He just put his foot on the ground and felt as if he were floating, being supported somehow, and only the toes of his shoes were bumping along the rocks.
Wow.
Wow.
So was it like, because they were the first ones, they were kind of breaking through a kind of new thought reality or a new reality, and that's kind of opening, and now we're much more accustomed and used to that kind of frequency maybe, and we can embrace it more with love because we know what's going on? Are you saying something like that? I mean, that's what I'm getting.
Well, I think so, because Betty and Barney were very kind and caring people. They weren't your typical humans. If you think about, the typical human, they were activists for very good causes, for peace, for civil rights, for human rights. And I think that they were the kind of humans that these ETs embrace. The kind that they're looking for, or maybe the kind they created.
Right. No, thank you. Is that your experience, Celestine, too? Yeah. I mean, you.
My experience in the way of.
Yeah, when you were younger, meeting those beings on the ship, of really being, or was it a kind of an adjustment period to get to the love part?
Well, they were very concerned. I felt that they were seriously trying to figure out, what were we doing as humanity? How are we handling, you have to imagine what our bodies look like with cocaines and opiates, and, how are we feeding our people? We had it in our milk. I call us the children of the chemical age, and we're still carrying on with the pharmaceutical and stuff. But there was a friendliness. There wasn't really a lot of emotion, but I didn't feel fear. I felt calm, and I was kind of listening and trying to understand. And they were really, the one that was working over me, they were tall grays, was really trying to give me the information of what was going on, that it wasn't just some haphazard, we land, we start doing this study. And then later, when I came in contact up in the mountains, it was really about, they have always lived here. So that was really the thing that they wanted me to understand, that many of the intelligences had been here since the conception of Earth. So there was the wise ones, some people call them the watchers, the guardians. And then there was the first humans that were created who were androgynous. And then slowly they would give me kind of the history, which we map out in the book a little bit, the history, from their point of view of the groupings that came, and they didn't really live in the greening area. They lived in what was called the septicles. They made these vibrational energy fields, and then they built the cities like Shambhala and the Gopi Desert and all of this stuff. And they nobody lived in the greening area. It's like, why chop wood and carry water when you can have these beautiful starports to come in and do resources? So what I found in being in the canyon, we called it the Buddha Canyon, is they would actually land, and there is a hillside that was all crystal. And because I was Native American, I was like, the way I found the entrances was following the ley lines. And the 60-foot waterfall led me up, and then to the right was 2 ley lines, one red and white, that had the crystals. Just pure, when I first came back, I had 50-pound packs, and I said, this is ridiculous. You got to take some back, right? And then on the other side was this archaeological stone building, which I took my cousin Fadl Gad, Egyptian cousin, and he said it was actually from the stone builder time. And so I found these, and they had carved an entrance and down into a cave, but they had sealed up part of the entrance. Later I discovered that they lived on this, they had colonies on the surface of the earth. I found the fallen pyramids. They kind of laid out the whole city for me. And they really wanted us to know that it's not that they're returning, it's that they never left. And there was a period about 10,500 years ago that they put up a barrier. That's the time of the floods. And 2,000 years, something like 200 years before that, everybody was together, but there was troubles. The people from Mars blew out their atmosphere. They settled the Fertile Crescent. People say the Anunnaki were the beginning of the races, but they were not. There were so many others. So I learned to feel them. And there's so many different kinds. Some are vibrating at such a high level that you just feel like you want to bow, because there's a sorcial energy coming through them, a vibration of knowing that takes you right into the holy, to the holiness of life. They just stand in presence. As you would say, Barbara, you felt the presence. And I know those clouds. And I was in Lourdes, France, and I kept seeing these white clouds. And I'd say, that's not a cloud, stop. And then finally over Lourdes, they opened up the cloud, and Deborah Giusti was with me, and I saw to the throne. And the actual energy, the God energy came down upon me. So, it is vibration and tuning in. They're so excited because they see us as galactic. We are galactic intelligence in a human body, biological body. And we've come here for different reasons. They so admire us. They're like, how do you look through those little eyes? They're jokesters. And they have so much fun with us. But, really, we took a step forward because we came into this embodiment as humans. And so we are a tone as a group, as a species. We intone the sound of Earth, and Earth is a part of the whole Milky Way. So they don't see us as this is our solar system, this is our planet. They see us as an embodiment of the whole Sheshata, the whole Milky Way. And there's so much in our a distortion in our fields right now. And so they're stepping forward to help us. And what they've told me about, like the crop circles, is it to give us the understanding of encoded transmissions, but also to let us know that they still hold the grid. Whoever holds the grid on the planet rules the planet,
Mm-hmm.
and so that we can be assured that they're still passing through time and space, leaving messages to each other, leaving messages to humanity. There's so much to that. And so when I take my groups out to do Skywatch, if they're advanced, all of them, the bottom line is who's flying the ship. So we take it from, look, there's a little dot in the sky, to who's flying the ship, and opening our intuition, opening our hearts to them. This is your brother and sister. They take, days of working with me before I take a group out. We took 2 groups out at Shasta. They did show up in beautiful ways. And so they said, we're building synapses, because when they would come out in the daytime, they would come out in a hologram that would look like an airplane. And somebody would say, that's an airplane. No, they would break into 2, break into 4, and come back together and circle around and do it again, maybe 1 wing. And they would keep doing that until the person finally said, that's not a plane.
Right.
So they're building synapses in order to be present with them and the vibration. But anyway, the love is there in the center. They move by the source. They don't, the ones that really connect with us and start working, they cannot just come forward and be in your life like, oh, let me go see that, unless they are reverse consciousness based. And still they get kind of in trouble for that,
Well, let's stay with the theme of love, because I
Yeah.
think it's good. And that's why I wanted to just thanks Celestine.
Thank
I
you.
want to just go to Joan, because she paints out of love. She exists. You sort of exude that, Joan, with your enthusiasm. Can you talk about that and meeting the beings from that place? Unmute. Yes.
Alan, you're such a good moderator. I just have to say that you are the best.
I just like to hear equal. I mean, I just like everyone to talk at once. Anyway. No.
But you're good at it, and you're specific. So from the time I was very little, I knew something was different about me. Didn't know what it was. I had this one dream over and over again that somehow I was carrying my mother under my arm. She was a white marble statue. And years later, I had this regression with Yvonne Smith and discovered that actually those were the ETs carrying me. And funny enough, now that I'm talking about the story, the marble figure kind of looked like this, except all white. I painted him as a golden being because he told me he's an ambassador. So I always kind of knew I would see angels walking around. And so I just always knew until I started. The first time I ever heard Whitley Strieber, I knew that somehow he was talking to me, that I had been an abductee. And I was a pure abductee because my terror ruled everything. Okay. I mean, just hearing them come up the stairs. But I told you at some point that stopped. And I think what happened is they were no longer taking my babies. I had definitely had an experience where my son, I got pregnant. I knew I got pregnant. And the next morning I woke up and I was bleeding. So I was sure I'd lost the baby. But it turned out that I was guided that they are on the ship. So my son was taken. I know that. And I actually think I have a sister who had been taken because I've been told that I was a twin. I don't know. But it was really through plant medicine in 2013. I had a lot of contact from 2010 when from Baja to Arizona, was always seeing myself on the ships and lived under that UFO highway. But when I started with plant medicine in 2013, that's when I was called to the Council of Light. That's when they showed me that they're calling together heaven and earth. And that's when I started really channeling more. And I'm still just learning, I'm still learning how to let myself really open up fully to this consciousness.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Rob, what do you get from this whole conversation? How do you put this all in perspective as we move forward as a community? I mean, all this different parts of the community contributing to this conversation. So where does it look like we're going with it?
One of the things that I see as a consistency is that there's so many different paths back to source. And I think everybody's encounters or discussions or all the different ways that we've all had contact with either extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever the case may be, it's showing us that they're all slighted somewhat for the same purpose, for the mostly of what we're seeing, right? So a lot of people, while they have this contact, some only see craft, some interact, but through that longevity of over this time period, we're opening up our mind to this expansion of consciousness. And it all comes back to the consciousness and how we will it or manifest it or how we interpret it. It always comes back to that. And one of the things that I feel like this specific panel is everybody's talking directly to me, like, and because I'm still in the very beginning stages of what I'm looking into my journey and figuring out, was it that far back or was it just these two incidences? And from what I felt, it felt like it wasn't the first time, but I felt like Barbara said, I felt that so many times that there was just something either watching or I was at peace with whatever was going on around me. And I would look and there's nothing there. So, but my eye wasn't trained or my consciousness wasn't trained to pick that up yet. I've had my awakening spiritually over the last 6 years, but it's so amazing how all these minds together and the art and all the different expressions, it literally envelops all aspects of society in different ways. And I think it's just truly remarkable. And I love the energy from everybody here. Everybody's story is just so profound to me. It's so many moments where I'm just like, wow. And I've been taking notes the whole time.
Great. Well, thank you, Rob. Thanks for being here and joining us. Kamara, thank you for sharing and tell us, because you've not just had experience, you gave us an experience. Everyone's art is an experience. So where do you think you're going individually, but collectively you're a bridge between these beings. Where are we going and how do we get there?
I'd like to put forth the idea that, anyone who shares any sort of transcendent information and sort of, translates it down into a presentation, albeit a piece of art, a piece of music, whatever, is sort of like a bridge, if you will. I really appreciated Celestine sharing your work. I mean, it's such an ancestral bridge, is the term I get for Celestine's work. Joan's work. What I'd like people to think about too is, choice of medium. I see a lot of people in the chat talking about digital art and analog art. All of my pieces start with sketches. That being said, even the choice of medium has some relevance in the conversation of how things are being transmitted as well. And so I think everything is a bridge. And I think how you choose to communicate that is very relevant to you and who you are and how you fit in. But I think it's also important to just continue to, be honest about who you are, be honest about what's been put inside of you and what source has designed you to be. Michelle, it's kind of interesting that you shared that artifact because this guy sent me like 30 pictures of those artifacts last year. He was like, hey, look at this. This is like your art. This is like your art. And all I get from that is that, it's like NFTs or like Bitcoin or something like that. It's like there's a ledger, right? And we're all a part of this ledger. We're all a part of this data download and we're all connected to it. And not only were we all taking and accessing points in this sort of data stream, but we're all putting new data and information into the data stream. And so as this data stream keeps rolling out, the more people who are able to raise their vibration and connect with the frequency, the more we can expand humanity. We have a long way to go. Collectively, we have a long way to go. But we have some really awesome, even on this panel, we have some really awesome souls doing some really awesome work with just trying to integrate higher dimensional energy. I know higher being a reductive, I agree with you, Neil. Just integrating higher dimensional energy into our three-dimensional reality frame. So it's important that we just keep sharing, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think this is what this panel was about, a kind of ways of integrating through the dialogue. And of course, everyone on the chat, everyone on YouTube, we're all sort of in this together. We're all trying to figure our way through an uncharted jungle. We're hacking our way through the underbrush to saying, no, let's go here. And we're doing it together. And that's what I feel from these panels and these discussions and the portal to ascension. So thank you. Kamara will be on. Yeah, go ahead, Kamara.
Really quick too. William Henry, his presentation earlier was kind of interesting in that, those of us who actually studied art in college and who actually work professionally as artists, some of the symbols he was sharing through some of the older Renaissance art, some of the older artists and such. You gotta understand, this whole conversation's been going on for ages, right? And so artists back in the day, different, Renaissance period, 1500s, 1400s, whatever, the development of art in general, the development of art in different ancient cultures, everyone's been trying to add to the conversation. And so it's important to you can look at any point in history that we have access to, that we have, prints or imagery from, and just look at that. This is just an ongoing stream of data that is just constantly evolving. It's like 8-dimensional data. It isn't just this, flat thing. It's this multidimensional understanding of how we can think about the vastness of the experience known as consciousness and source.
Right. And art influences consciousness and consciousness influences art. And it's like, we're not separate, and it's like this wheel that keeps turning through us and with us and, moving forward into the unknown. It's like the artist creates the unknown and brings it into the known. So Kamara will be at the Star Seed Summit the end of October. Look it up in Portal to Ascension. She is a rising star in this field, a rising star seed there. Starseed 2 days summit online. You could good deal there, and so many people that were here will be part of that. Omar, where did Omar go? Oh, Omar, yeah. What are you saying?
There.
What's that?
Oh, he's right there. I wanted
to I didn't see for a second.
Comment on art whenever he's finished there.
Oh yeah, but
go ahead, Celestine. I'm gonna share the links to the Star Seed Summit, so I'll go after you.
While you're doing that,
Celestine, go ahead then. Yeah.
So a very interesting Jose Arquelas, who was a professor of art. He went around the world and he discovered that there are 7 pulses around the earth. And for instance, he would take art from, China or, the different pulse places. The book he wrote it in was Earth Ascending. So artists, if you're interested, that's something really important to get into. And he says, there's a pulse coming into the earth and everybody kind of gets it, but the artist will go in nature or wherever they're receiving it, and then they will begin to create the art. So he took as an example an urn that was a burial urn which had a top on it and was specifically in a form, and then 1,000 years later the form was still made but no top, and it was all around the world. And then he took another art form and another, and I think we're the new impulse. And he said, so the artist would create the art, the people look at the art, and then they build civilization from what they see. So I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Well, right, but what do you want us to take away? What do you want us to leave us with on the
is that we are receiving transmissions. This is the reintegration of the earthkin with the starkin. We are one. There is no, we are humans and they are out there. We are one. They never left. They're just going to step forward. They've been stepping forward for hundreds of years now, and it's getting to the point that our Schumann resonance is rising in frequency, and so we're beginning to see through and understand more of, and they can come forward. They no longer have to cloak. The other thing is, it's called the Simperith, or divine plan, and this impulsing that's coming through the source, whose expression we are all a part of, is at the head of this. The source is pushing it through. So we're a part of this reintegration, and I'm so glad to be here with everybody and riding this wave. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Celestine. Kathleen, you're speaking at the Portal to Tomorrow, giving a presentation, but what do you get from where we're going as experiences, as researchers, as a planetary civilization, as this object whatever this thing is out there, it seems to be coming closer. And like Barbara said, the feelings in people are emerging. What do you get from all this, and where are we going?
I think those of us who are experiencers of this have an understanding of it and are moving forward at a faster rate than before. But it's extremely important for us to tell the rest of humanity, if we can, that there is nothing to fear, because there's so much fear in the hearts of people worldwide. And that fear just brings the vibrational frequency down.
What's your presentation tomorrow going to be about?
It's going to be about communication with non-humans and about a recent experiment I did over a 2-year period with Kevin Briggs.
Oh,
I think you know, and the messages that we received from the Council of Eight.
great. We should get Kevin on Portal to Ascension, Neil. He's a great channel.
Yeah, he's reached out to me before, so let's make that happen.
Well, he's a good friend of Kathleen's, and he's a great guy. So thanks for being here, Kathleen. Was there anything new you heard on this panel? Because you've heard it all, sort of.
I haven't heard it all. I enjoyed everyone's comments. It's so great to hear information from a variety of people who have some greater insight than I have into all of this. And so I want to thank everybody.
Well, thank you for your continued work and enthusiasm. And you are a lineage holder, you know, so we need you. Thanks so much.
I intend to stay around.
Oh, good, because everything's about to change, I think. I mean, it seems that way. And Barbara, what about you? What do you think it's all going for experiencers and this evolution of our interactions with this phenomena?
Well, I'm very delighted and gratified that more and more people are sharing about their experiences. That means that more and more people are recognizing, after decades in many cases, they're finally recognizing that, oh, some of those peculiar things that have happened that they've wondered about might be or are actual contacts with extraterrestrial beings. So many people are kind of coming out of their own private closet, shall we say, and even out of a more public closet. In other words, I think there's more and more awareness happening, certainly in this country, and I believe in some other countries too, that more and more people are awakening to the fact that there are these many, many other beings in the cosmos. We're not alone, and that many of these beings actually interact with those of us on Earth. So I think that that's a healthy thing, that's coming out, because anything that is repressed, stuck down in the subconscious part of the mind is not doing us any good. It does not do well for people to do that. So psychologically, therapeutically, it's very helpful that this material is coming up into people's consciousness. And I think that there's enough information out there with conferences like this as a big contributor to that, that people can feel that, oh, maybe it isn't something I have to continue to be terrified about. Maybe there's actually some potential for some good here. And one of my personal missions is not only to let people, as much as I can, let other people know about this reality of the other beings, and they're coming here to many of us, but to also show that with a lot of the variety of the beings and agendas amongst them, there is a lot of good, tremendous good with some of them. And I think that that is a great message for hope. And as the hybrids, whom I've had the great honor of knowing and working with and writing about, as each one of them, 8 of them, independently of each other, all brought out the same phrase, which I love to repeat, and that is that we are all one. Not only all of us here on Earth, but all of us in the cosmos. We are really all one, and we are all part of the great creative source. So that transcends religion and divisiveness that we've gotten into so much here on the earth, where we're so separate, so over and against anything that's not like us or doesn't believe the same way. Even with the incredible, in my opinion, incredible negative things going on in the world, and losing one freedom after the other, as I see it, it's very hopeful to me that more and more people are rising in their consciousness, rising in their spirituality, rising in their openness to, oh, there is so much more to existence than we have been previously aware of. So I think this is a very hopeful direction that many of us are going in.
Thank you.
When we share it.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your work and your dedication and your ongoing enthusiasm and presence for this unknown phenomenon that we're all kind of trying to make sense of, but evolving with the mystery.
We are evolving with it. Wonderful point. Thank you.
No, and thank you for everything you're doing and have done and your contribution to this. And let's go to the moderators now. Did you, Joan, do you want to sum up the day and the conference and the panel and everything we said here?
Okay, well, the day was incredible, from Kamora to all of our speakers today. So my mind is actually blown. But I will say this, it's amazing because we're able to download and we have this connection to, whether you call them your guides, your star beings, your angels, we have an ability to expand beyond our physical body. And so in a world, like everyone's mentioning, that our freedoms are being taken away. So on the third dimension, our freedoms are being taken away. And yet all of us here are ascending to the fifth. We're looking at everything from such a higher consciousness. And I was sitting here going, well, this is amazing. Because on the right hand, they're squeezing the planet. On the left hand, many of us are going up and we're going higher. And we're taking many people with us. But the sorrow is that there are many people who won't go. And we know that. We know that there's a bifurcation. So, you asked the secret to my smiling. I'm happy because I know who I am. And because I know who I am, I wake up out of bed leaping, filled with passion and purpose. And that's my message to everyone out there. In fact, go to my website. I have a great free ebook, How to Find Your Purpose This Life, because it wasn't until I found my purpose that I discovered how to leap out of bed every single day. And I've been doing it for many years, probably more than anyone else here except for Barbara. So, and Barbara leaps out of bed because you can tell a person who knows who they are. So all of you out there, you're called to this because you've had your own contact. Acknowledge your contact, expand it, draw it. We're just sharing our contact, but we are part of where we're going. And so, there's this restriction, but the freedom is in here. So,
And that's so good, Joan. The mystery is what's feeding us, or me. It's like, we're all sitting at the edge of something.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so exciting. It's just like food for the soul in the sense. So
It
yeah.
is if you like the slow rollout. Now, I'm the kind that always I'd read a novel and then I'd have to jump to the end because the anxiety of all the struggles that our main character would go through tortured me. I'm like, Michelle, I could cry, so I would have to read the end. So I will say this, the good news about channeling and having guidance is that you get glimpses of where we're going, which can soothe your soul. Everyone here has had glimpses of where you're going. And that makes it all, I think, the best.
Glad it's happy endings for all of us.
Yes, let's have happy endings is right.
But Omar, do you want to jump in here? And then
Yeah,
Michelle?
absolutely, Alan. Thank you very much. And, my love to everyone on this panel, including Grant Cameron, that's not here, wonderful guy. And, many thanks to, our speakers here today and over the course of the last 2 days. But most of all, I'd like to acknowledge and give a big thanks to our audience that's been watching us here in the Zoom room and also on Portal to Ascension and New Realities and Full Spectrum Universe. It's just been great conversations throughout the day in all of the platforms. And I think that what we need to do is we need to stop identifying ourselves with a single human container because we're an expression of the infinite consciousness. We are all possibilities, everything there ever was, ever is, or ever will be. So I think we need to also keep in mind that majority of us are probably have been abducted, so to say, and we just don't, recall that encounter. Perhaps it's not time for us to remember it, and that's why majority of us haven't remembered. So I think it's happening on a much larger scale than what it appears, and that's really it for me. Is we just have to keep in mind that we are not human beings. We are spiritual beings. We are spiritual consciousness. We are infinite, and we're just here for this just very brief moment, just a blip of a second, if that second even exists, because we know that outside of the celestial time, it doesn't exist, right? So we're just popping in here and doing our thing and popping out. It's like Grant was saying earlier. We have a chore to do. We, agreed to it. We came here to this realm to do what we need to, and we should just do it and be happy and be content with the light work that we're doing and that we're destined to do. And a lot of people in this panel are light workers. For instance, like Barbara Lamb, just been at this for longer than I've been alive. So it's just a great honor to be able to pick up the reins from our previous generation that's taught us this new knowledge, that we can carry it forward and give it to the next generation. And it's looking great because people are waking up on a daily basis. Regardless of what the media says, there's a lot more of us that are awoke on this planet than those that are asleep. So we shouldn't listen to the fake media and really concentrate on the communities and the spaces that we're building in this Zoom room and around the world, and really resonate with that message, and then take it home and talk about it at our dinner tables, and talk about it at work, talk about it on the bus if you're taking the bus to work, and just get that, lay that seed out there and let someone fester on it for a little bit, and then maybe they'll be like, hey, what was that guy talking about on the bus this morning? I really want to know. And then maybe he'll Google it, and then all of a sudden there's that portal of ascensions opens up, and then off they go. So one thing I have to say, each and every single person that's watching us, that's been part of Portal to Ascension, they are the Portal to Ascension, which Neil has helped us to identify what we are, and he's given this a term to what we actually are, and we are Portal to Ascension. So thank you very much, Neil, for all your hard work and all your light work. I love you, brother. And Alan, Dr. Joan is correct. You are a fantastic moderator. I respect that. You're good at it, brother.
Yeah, it's like making soup for me, a little bit here, a little bit there. But
yes.
that's great
analogy.
Delicious soup.
This is
Very
delicious
delicious.
soup. But we are the real media. I mean, most of us, our moderators, we've been here for 9 hours today, 9 hours the last 2-3 days. And so it doesn't get any more real than that, I think. Thank you, Omar. Now let's talk the heart of the portal. Michelle Anderson, you are at the core. You remind us all the time to just keep going back there.
Yes.
To the
Thank
heart.
you so much. Thank you so much. I was just texting with one of our Awakening Code Radio listeners that's become a friend of mine. She's in Maryland, and I was telling her how I have such deep respect for everyone here. And Alan, the way that you honor every single person, and you are such a fantastic moderator. You were just so on the way that you honor everyone and you weave us all together, and it seems so effortless to you. And sometimes you have to jump in and interrupt somebody, and you do it with such grace that I sit here, my jaw's on the floor, like, wow, he just does that so elegantly, and it's just eloquent. It just comes so naturally. And Joan, your enthusiasm and what you said about you're a person who knows who you are, and that's why you jump out of bed. That is such a great reminder for every one of us who sometimes take on the density around us. And I know that years ago, I suffered from depression, and my daughter was a little girl. I couldn't get out of bed, and she asked me why I wasn't going to go to dinner with them. And something came out of my mouth that surprised even me. But I said, when you know your mission on earth and you're not living it, it makes you sad. And she said, what's your mission on earth, Mommy?
Oh.
And I said, to love every person I ever meet and to let them know how special they all are. In her little girl voice, she said, will you still have enough love for me?
Wow.
My little daughter, who I love so much. And I really feel like being adopted. I was adopted, so I gave her this name, Nikki Lee from the Angels. And I feel like every person I met in my life could have been my mother, my sister, my brother, my cousin, my dad. I never knew growing up. So eventually I adopted this idea that if I just treated everybody like my family, it would all work out. And it did, and it has. And I think we're getting to that point and recognizing all the boundaries that we place on each other by this judgment and blame and shame is getting us nowhere. And if it is time for us to rise out of that. That is a thing in the past, and now we have arrived. And portal to ascension, Neil, the way that you set the container, this is you, brother. You set the container for this radiance. You look at the people you have drawn to you, just here on this panel. Rob with his beautiful heart, Omar, I mean, all of the moderators, Joan and Sharia and Alan, and then Celestine, and each one of you, Kathleen, Barbara. I am blown away by, and I am, what's our beautiful artist name again? I don't, Kamora. Yeah. Like every one of you, your hearts were the way that you shared today. You can just really feel it. We all feel it. We're all family. And by modeling this, and Neil, you're modeling this every day with every portal to ascension, do you feel each one, the energy is rising, and we're taking that with us and we're bringing that back to our families and our communities. And when we see this division and people, I'm not going to talk to them anymore because they don't believe the way I do. We can live it. We can live it into being. And that's what our mission is in this group. We are living it into being. We are, Celestine, I think you said it today. No, Sharia said it when we were talking with you about entrainment. That word, entrainment, being around people who maybe we talked about, haven't awakened. I don't. I don't want to put anyone down for where they are. Everybody's right where they need to be. And I looked up the word brainwash to look at, like, how do you know if you're being brainwashed? Because I think everybody on each side of the equation is like, they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed.
Yeah.
And when I looked it up, one of the things I found was that a person who knows who they are cannot be brainwashed. It's that simple. So holding the container, holding the space for this massive awakening to happen, not putting people down, not calling people sheeple or they're stupid or they don't get it. That's old paradigm. That is so, ancient. It's time for us to hold this container, knowing that sometimes when it's 4:30 in the morning and my husband wants to get up to go to the gym and his alarm goes off, he snoozes it. I think that there is something called an awakening code. And when people are ready to awaken, we're here to embrace them and help them across this bridge. We incarnated for this time. And that's what lights me up and makes me jump out of bed. So
Wow.
thank you so much for everything, for holding this container. And to everybody in the chat, I just want all of you listeners to know that you're all creating this with us. It's not just us here on camera. It's every person typing in the chat. They're giving each other their email addresses and finding each other. It's family. And I think we need to expand more of that as well.
Thank you, Michelle. When you remind me of, like, we think we're talking about aliens, UFOs, we're really talking about ourselves and our own evolution. This is sort of what Grant and everyone's saying. This is our process. Whatever's out there, it's bringing us together and opening our minds and connecting with a deeper part of ourselves. This is what we're being called to at this time. And then
I would,
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Alan. I would also say that this is also counseling for all of us and everyone that's watching, because a lot of people, they can't talk to their families about what's going on with them and the ascension process that they're going through, or ETs visiting them in their bedrooms or wherever the case may be, and they feel ostracized by talking to their friends and their families. So, when you come to spaces like this that Neil's created, it's really a lot of counseling, getting over that trauma and knowing that there are other people out there who are having the same experience and that they can be part of this community and this family and talk about it without being judged and without being ostracized, and be able to freely share what they need to share, just as they can get it off of their chest, and then they can continue on with their experience and continue being that portal of ascension when the future comes and when it's right for them.
Right. Yeah. Rob, Barbara, and then we'll go to Rob. Yeah, Barbara.
Yeah, just quickly. I am more and more aware of people who are coming to me for regression work to find out what their purpose in life is. I've been doing this work since 1976, but in the last 2 or 3 years, there's really been an acceleration of people who are coming for that reason, to go deeply into themselves with the regression process, that is deeper into themselves and into their higher knowing, their soul knowing, to find out what they are here to do. How are they to serve? To me, that's a really wonderful thing, that so many more people are wakening up to wonder, what are they here to do for others and for the world?
Well, thank you for saying that, because it reminded me of what I wanted to say after Michelle talked, which was that, in a sense, we know, or I feel like this group here, we know what our mission is. This is our mission. And there's a energy, a synergy that builds among us, because we are tuned to that frequency of, give me more, let me have the next level of the mystery, of the unfolding of the unknown. And we are sucking it up in that way. And it's like, it is like food for us as we kind of synergically build a greater mind into bringing an awareness here, each individually and collectively. And so I think that's why these Portal to Ascension summits keep getting more and more exciting, because we're bringing more people along in this building capacity of the superhuman mind, which is all we're a part of. So I'm excited. Rob, tell me about your excitement. Tell me what you got.
I'm excited too. And I just wanted to piggyback off that. The community is cultivating a database of contact to awake the conscious mind for themselves and for others. And with that being said, it is drawing more and more people to basically see somebody else's experience, confide in them, and also relate to it. So more and more people, as we go through these sessions, like a counseling session, people hear other people's stories and say, wait a minute, that happened to me too. I have to look into this. And that is passing it. And that's each one teach one on a grand level. And it's exponentially growing this community, which means the database will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger exponentially, which the whole world will wake up eventually. And that's the sum of it all for me.
Right. Someone used to tell me.
It's inevitable.
That's right. And I feel honored to be a part of this. Thank you, Neil. And it's like someone would say, it's not a small world, it's a big family. So now the captain of the portal, the captain of the spaceship, Neil Gore. Yes.
Yay.
Take us home. Take us to the space.
Neil.
So incredible. I mean, I'm usually not speechless, but I am right now. I'm like, but I'm still going to say a lot of words, but I feel speechless because I don't even remember the last time I felt so blessed to be sitting with a group of people. And I've sat on a lot of panels, but just this one, just the whole concept of the experiencer and all of the emotions that brings up in us, and how it connects us to beyond this reality. It's just really heart opening. And every single person's the whole thing was amazing, but every single person's closing statement was gold. Literally, we should transcribe each of them and make a book just out of the closing statements, because just the empowerment that was just there, and the frequency and the vulnerability and the humbleness that everybody is sharing from this experience. I really feel it intuitively comes together like this, because I know a lot of you, I don't know all of you personally on that level, but then intuitively, when we all get together, the synchronicities start to unfold and all of this is shared. So I feel that this panel was extremely heart-centered and just really up-leveled just everything that we've been together creating, and really an up-levelment and of everything I've ever done, has led up to this point, and now we're having these discussions on it gets bigger and bigger every single time we do these events. More and more people are involved in here, and I'm just really excited for what's going to be happening in our future, because you guys give me hope. I'm just a hopeless optimist, and so much that, and I've said this a few times during this conference, over the last year and a half, I actually lost hope, and I've never lost hope in this whole thing. And then I had to remind myself to have hope. And then I felt like a hypocrite doing these events where I felt hopeless, and I was just I just really I'm about to cry actually. I really felt lost and disconnected, and doing these events, speaking to you guys, having this communication really makes me feel that connection again. So it just goes to show how we need each other to be the reminders, right? And it goes back to what I said about amnesia yesterday. If we didn't have that amnesia, maybe we didn't need the reminders. But now we have all these reflections of us to just remind ourselves who we truly are, that you're on the right path, that we are grateful for each other. And through that, we can continue doing this work. I feel that a lot of us, we work very closely, but as the years continue, we're going to start working together even more and more closely, because the time to create a new world is going to happen very soon, or is happening. And we are the architects for this new world, and we are the wayshowers, and there's going to be millions of wayshowers, right? But at this point, a wayshower is someone who's going to be providing information or implementing this awareness. And I think this is the beginning of that discussion. right? And just one last point on that. If you look at ancient history and the turn of the zodiac every 2,000 years, there's a new spiritual philosophy every zodiac that manifests, right? Even when Moses struck down everybody on Mount Sinai, that was not like so crazy as they explained it. It was actually that they were worshiping people from the old zodiac, and Moses was like, hey, it's a new zodiac now, there's a new spiritual tradition, you should be worshiping this new tradition, not the old one. So first of all, why did he judge them and do that to them when they were just following the old traditions? So maybe that part isn't real. But what I'm getting at is that's the exact same thing that's happening now. In the beginning of all of these shifts in consciousness, there is a group of people that are very small that end up becoming like the main philosophy in the world. In our devolution in consciousness, we had organized religion. In our evolution in consciousness, we have what I like to call non-dogmatic spiritualism. No scriptures, no text, like just like true spirituality. If you, I guess, implementing quantum physics on a spiritual level, the subatomic world is what was really happening here. So that's all I want to really say about all of that. Like, I'm just so happy to be here with all of you guys, and I love you all. And I really like want to create this in person live and just like not only have this conversation, but then go out to eat afterwards and like hang out, that's what we're going to.
Can I just read the chat, Neil, for you?
Yeah, go for it.
It says, we're feeling what you're feeling, Neil, only from our living rooms. We feel so connected to all of you and everyone in the chat. So grateful. Neil is my mentor and brother. I love him very much. I have so much hope as a result of listening to these 3 days. Many blessings to all. Always appreciate your sacred breath, which is divine within us. Collaboration and inclusivity, the divine feminine, may she rise. And this was very comforting tonight, much wanted. Everyone sleep well, and we'll see you tomorrow. But anyway, Neil, you have some final words there.
Yes. So firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody here. I appreciate all of you. And now I'm going to close out for the day, and I'm just going to do some poetry, if that's okay with everyone, and we'll close out. Okay.
Thank you, Neil.
Anybody argued with that, we'll be like, what?
No, I meant if anybody wanted to say anything.
No, thanks, Neil. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to do 3 poems here. And let me just tell everybody that tomorrow we're live at the same time. I don't think I'm going to send another email out because I've sent 3 or 4 already. Use the same link to join. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, come back at 10 a.m. But definitely check the same Zoom link for tomorrow. We have a whole other day with an extraterrestrial panel at the end of it. So see you tomorrow. And here are 3 poems that I'm going to share.
Just one sec, Neil. I just want to jump in and say that, I've got the Zoom room link in the community channel on my Watchers Talks. So if anybody wants to follow that in tomorrow, and then in Portal to Ascension, we'll do the same thing. Put it in the community tab, and also with New Reality. So tomorrow, you guys just can simply go to that community tab, click that, and come right into the Zoom room.
Yeah, and let's make tomorrow, like we've had a lot of people come in and out. If you can, please do try to come tomorrow. If you're busy, you're busy, but if you can, try to make it just for a little bit. Let's make this last day really powerful and get as many people involved to really set out collective intention, and just send that frequency out. All right, so I'm going to do 3 poems just back to back, almost like a journey here, like a psychedelic journey. It's called Cosmos Love Goddess is the first one. Then the Solar System of Soul is the second one. And then we're going to end with Rejoin the Galactic Federation. Cosmos Love Goddess. The sun shines brightly. Solar flare activity creating cycles of lucid dreams. An etheric beam taking 8 seconds to arrive, asking God if I'm alive. Pinch myself, water in my face. This has to be reality. My thoughts are encased in physicality, constructs, limitation. I debunk conspiracies, agendas, and pain. The 5 senses, they limit my frame of reference, blessed with so much reverence for all I encounter. You see, this is my own resurrection. When you look at the sky and see your own reflection, you know you're heading in the right direction. Fought my entire life just to be present. Now I'm here in the moment. So what's the next step to take? Embrace the polar opposite and don't fake myself anymore. Real to the core, 100% intention, no doubt, and heading back to source. No need to force your own evolution, etheric resolution. The destination has already been chosen. It's the journey that counts. With peace, I'm out. With peace, I'm out. With peace, it's just another day. Sun castaway, hiding in space, new moon appear as to black the sky fades. Pluto in retrograde, Saturn's rings. I feel gravitationally pulling me as Jupiter is the king, protecting Earth's inhabitants from the asteroid that sings. A chapter of a story. But another one closes. A new species arose with self-awareness, genetically changed, mutated neural networks within the brain to construct limitation of mind, to move away from the God inside, consumed with temptation and bribes, fed greed and lies from the elite who thrive on contractual linear time, blocking the subconscious signs that we are all one. Crop circles of sacred geometrically run universal abundance, moving away from the worship of the sun, leading nations with bombs and guns. We were all victims to our own creation, to the evolution of the Masons. So I'm pacing back and forth, smoking herb on my porch, looking at the skies, contemplating why I chose to come down this time, contemplating will it will be time for all humanity to thrive. As an Arcturian warrior of light, I gave up trying to fight. Now I embrace the upcoming arrival, the evolution of a godly race. No more denial. And the last piece right here, rejoining the Galactic Federation. And then there was one. Life untangled, rhymers undone, life source drained, vanity explained, following those with fame. I always fight and complain, but the answer remains the same. Control with borders untamed, locked up and enslaved, riding the quantum wave through awareness we are saved. Ascend and fade away and live for today and don't play games or get erased from this face. One face, unity of race, consciousness explained. End of human reigns, galactic alliance remains our true cosmic place amongst the stars in space, aware now in case reincarnation takes my next life away. So ascend and pray, not for monetary gains, but an escape from superficial ways. You see, life is just a phase that will one day be replaced by pure energy and an entirely new intergalactic race. And that's us.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. Love and resonance.
Love you guys so much.
Fantastic, bro. Fantastic.
It was such a great day. Thank you guys for making it so amazing.
Totally awesome. Thank
Yes.
you. Neil. Thank you.
Tomorrow, yes.
Love you all.
See you all tomorrow.
Honor and privilege.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you all.
See you tomorrow. Love you guys very much.
Thank you.
Love and light to all.
Love you.
Bye, everybody.